We may not think normally that game dev is thinking multiple steps ahead of where we are in the current live environment, but with Warzone, apparently they're years ahead in terms of their planning. Not necessarily in terms of what's actually in-game with content, but the general location of where we're gonna go narratively and with some of those bigger picture items are starting to be planned years out now at this point. Today, we're gonna talk about the future of Warzone as described by Infinity Ward co-studio heads and the president of Activision himself, as well as talk you through a little bit of what I think this next year will hold in terms of significant events within Warzone. So as we go along, let me know your thoughts down below. What do you hope to see in the future of Warzone? Is there anything in particular that really stands out to you that you really hope comes? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts down below. As well, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel and want to stay up to date with all things Warzone and anything COD related, hit that subscribe button. We're on that road to 500,000 subscribers. So if you guys would like to join the community, I'd love to have you. And finally, check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage who are set to launch their new Horizon frames. Incredibly comfortable. And of course, if you're looking to protect your eyes a little further, head on over to the link in the description below to learn more. And if you want to pick up a pair for yourself, use code Espresso. That said, let's talk about the future of Warzone and what's up on deck. So the bulk of the discussion that's already been detailed here in relation to the future of Warzone comes from an interview done by the Washington Post in which they sat down and talked to Pat Kelly and Dave Stoll, co-studio heads at Infinity Ward, to talk about Warzone and the milestone that is 100 million players since the launch of Warzone. Now, it's definitely an interesting read here, but they ended up talking about how the fact that Infinity Ward is still involved with Call of Duty Warzone at a high level of development and that story progression. So they haven't quite given the reins over fully to Raven and thus then Treyarch for story elements, and they still have some of that controlling factor in it. What he mentions though, which is the key standout pieces, are the fact that they're finalizing the details for Season 6 of Warzone and Cold War storyline, which will launch later this year. From my brief glimpses into development here, having met with and talked with developers over the past 5 years or so, this is relatively in line. They're usually about 2 to 3 seasons ahead of schedule here from what's actually currently live, so that they're working on and finalizing pieces of that, and then they can start working on whatever comes next. They just play the get ahead game here while there's a bunch of other teams like Live Ops that do deal with things that happen as it happens. But additionally, one of the things that has been a catalyst here for my own thought process, the discussion here with this, is that Pat Kelly also told them that the studio has planned out Warzone's broad strokes for several years into the future, closing on a statement of saying some things we want to do mode-wise, geo-wise, they take more time, so they naturally need to slot in later. But we do think about this on a multi-year basis, and I will tell you this, we're doing our damnedest right now to top what's come before. And as we mentioned in the intro here of this video, the fact that Warzone is going to be front and center here at the Call of Duty brand is no surprise. Activision invested heavy into this so that it could be that stepping stone, that jumping off point for players that are new to the world of Call of Duty. They can jump in, play this out, and then get their hands a little dirty with the experience and then think, okay, maybe I'll buy the full game here with this. And that's kind of the marketing strategy and approach they're taking with it, but it's still a hefty investment done on the end of Activision. But what does that mean then for what we can see in the upcoming year and then years beyond? Because admittedly, I think there's already a pattern set in stone here and a lot of stuff we can already see, even if it's not specifically given to us in explicit detail. So for that, I'm going to jump over to what I think is the upcoming roadmap for Warzone over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. Now, do bear in mind, this is only speculation at this point here. There is nothing that really points definitively to this happening exactly how we describe it, but I feel like there's a good chance that it could happen. Of course, we most recently had that new map launch, whether you agree with that it is new or not, however you feel about it, that was the big ticket item here for at least the month of April. That's Season 3, that sort of crossover point where we're now fully immersed into the 1984 world, that Cold War universe. That, to me, I think is going to be the biggest thing for a while. I think that we may see some things in-game that are introduced here over the coming seasons, but I think that's the big key marquee item for a little bit. As for story elements that will progress now in the background, because we are fully immersed within that Cold War universe here, we'll see, of course, things in, say, shift in landscape and environment with coming seasons, perhaps introducing new locale as time progresses, and if that's the case, hopefully we get more things in a more speedy fashion in the first year of Warzone, with only one new point of interest introduced here in the entire first year of Warzone of Shipwreck. Yeah, we had some smaller things here changed out, like the opening up of Stadium and Train Station, but realistically, when it came down to it, it didn't really shift the dynamic all that much. I'm kind of hoping that Raven takes a little bit more of a hands-on approach with keeping the world fresh and new to players as the next year progresses. But we'll also see that narrative directly play out with the seasonal story that we see unfold unfolding within Black Ops Cold War. That's now going to be directly one-to-one tied with Warzone's story as well, given that we made that flashback jump to 1984. This is now where Stitch and his plot is unfolding, and we'll likely have our operators trying to stop whatever he has planned in the upcoming seasons. We also will likely see things like those bunkers being a piece to progress here as time progresses. Those, of course, stayed around with the map update and are also mentioned on the TAC map as potentially opening up in the future. So likely that's going to be something plain as day, being they're potentially opening up. You know that means they're going to actually happen. But if I were to guess this time around, it's more so going to maybe situate around the number station and the brainwashing projects that Stitch has planned and what we see so far with Season 3's cutscene, as opposed to things like, say, the nuke and Zakhaev's plot for that unleashing World War III that we saw over the course of the last couple of seasons of Modern Warfare. But I think that the narrative is probably that big thing that we'll see progressed here in the immediate future. Something giving us that detailed look a little further into the Black Ops Cold War universe post-campaign. But when we try and think about things on a more larger scale here, something that may actually generate some buzz, some hype outside of just the daily player base of Warzone, you think about new events probably. That's something that I think we'll see these progress here throughout each season with seasonal events that are thematic for each season turnover and introduction, but at the same time, the big one that I see that is next is probably that of a reveal event. By all indications, the Know Your History reveal was a great step in the right direction and captivated audiences. Same thing goes for that nuke event for the map changeover at the start of this season. That was pretty big. It was something built up here for months on end, and whether or not it exceeded your expectations or fell below it, it was definitely a very interesting way to reveal something in-game while also keeping you engaged with it. The biggest thing that I would imagine here as to why they bring the reveal event back up for whatever Call of Duty may be next is the ability to keep all eyes in-house, in the same room as the product they want you to play, while also simultaneously revealing a new project and something next in line, something cool, but also bolstering that player number on all front at the exact same time. It's honestly, from a marketing perspective, a brilliant strategy. You maximize that potential on all fronts for your own products while also not really having to spend any money on a full-on dedicated marketing budget like you would, say, if you were revealing something at the NBA Finals per se in years past. But this is also something that we can likely see again because in that same interview that we mentioned, Infinity Ward studio head Pat Kelly said that they're doing their damnedest to top whatever they've done before, likely in reference to large-scale items and events like we've seen. What lends to that possibility as well is that Activision's president, Rob Kostich, went on record with VentureBeat recently talking about how they're, quote, probably shifting a bit more in that direction in relation to later reveal periods for upcoming games, meaning that we'll have less build-up than previous years and follow a similar marketing outlook and strategy as Black Ops Cold War this past year, a reveal around the end of August or early September with a beta to follow shortly, and then a full launch of the game about a month and a half later on down the line, which admittedly, a part of me actually really likes. Personally, I really like knowing things ahead of time, being ready and planned out here for that, so in the past, that 6-month time frame where a reveal happens and then 6 months has to pass before the launch, that's something that's worked, but I also like not having to wait that long, having my eyes set on something that I'm looking forward to that much, but that incredible pain of waiting that long for a new title to play. So if I can learn about something then jump right into it shortly thereafter with less wait time, I also think I'd be okay with that, but that's kind of beside the point here for this. But Warzone likely will have another reveal event in the fold for the not necessarily immediate future, but in the coming future here with it, a couple of months down the line. Potentially, there also may be even further down that line, another secondary map, potentially like Rebirth. This one's a bit more speculative and something that's born out of an attempt to try and piece together a pattern when we have our sample sizes really just 1.5 go-arounds in the potential cycle for Call of Duty with Warzone. So if we see a new larger map once every year or 14 months or so, in conjunction with tying the game to the current mainline premium title, what's to say we couldn't see that also in the same way on the smaller scale with Rebirth Island? Is it really crazy to consider that Rebirth could also be hit with that cycle treatment, where they either replace it with a different map, or potentially even add in a third map that's on offer instead of just having Rebirth and Verdansk? Again, very much so speculative, but an interesting thought, I think. When it comes to later in the year, we can get to the topic of COD 2021's integration. While I would have loved for integration to happen at launch of Cold War, I actually understand entirely why that was never really in the cards now looking back. as a publisher, you want players on your game right at launch, not only just using weapons and putting their time in elsewhere into a different project of yours when that project launches. It steals the thunder at that point. So whatever happens with COD 2021, I'd expect a delayed integration by a bit. Maybe about a month or two, give them some time on their own limelight. But what's odd to consider is that if it truly is being reported as a poor development, that the game's not in a good state here, it's in shambles, whatever it may be, maybe this delays the integration even a little further, so further back than December or January perhaps here in relation to the upcoming year. But the final thing we'll talk about again is that broad stroke. Pat Kelly said they have the broad strokes for several years into the future, meaning that they know what will happen at a top-down level. The general roadmap is what's to come, and I think that there's a lot of the same scheduling that we've seen already in this first year and a couple of months of Warzone already detailed and further in the cards for the future. Reveal, an integration period, a map shift or alteration, repeat. The ebbs and flows to follow after that. So I think for a general perspective, we kind of know what Warzone is going to have, but when it comes down to each season, what events, what map updates or weapon tuning or anything like that, the more micro things, I think that's a little harder to map out. But when we talk about the larger scale Warzone experience, I think we actually still have a relatively good idea of what's to come in the future. So that said, that's where we're at here with this. So I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Do you like the current schedule that we're on here within Warzone, where we have larger ticket items once every couple of times a year and then things fill it out in between? Would you like to see larger items on a more frequent basis? Not so much. Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone and anything COD related. We'll keep the day with all of it. So if you guys are interested, hit the subscribe button. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content outside of YouTube. Practically on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.